So what I want to start with, and I know it should be prayer because I'm a pastor, but I really want to start with, does anybody have something that they really hope they're going to hear today, something about speaking that they come and go, like, I really need to know this, I really want to know this, and this one thing really bugs me about speaking that right off the bat you want to ask me. Okay, then we'll just go along with this. Everybody gets something. So my hope is that in the end you can walk out of this room and declare confidently, I am a woman rocking ministry. I want you to be able to say that with full confidence, without any hesitation, and know that that's what's true about you. So in the folder, it actually talks about, it says, a woman in ministry, are using your voice, whether you're on stage or with a microphone. And that little paragraph sounds absolutely wonderfully fancy. I'll have you know AI wrote that. It makes me sound super good, right? And then I gave it to Andrea, who then adapted it. She sent it back to me. She goes, how does it sound? And I said, sounds great. All right, so if somebody wants to make sure that people in the back have a post-it note and a card. Somebody want to volunteer for that? Please. Okay.
Oh, yeah, you got a higher one.
Oh, yeah.
What's happening?
You're not following.
Oh, I see. So to make one long one, is that what it's doing?
One is higher than the other, we're going to select it.
Another one?
¿Qué pasó? Se le cayó.
The shorter.
No, I'm passing these out.
That could be a footprint. What, this one over there? Just watch it doesn't whack your head.
Yeah, make sure you guys pass that swag back around. Everybody just get some pieces.
These are what we use for a choir.
All right, so
Oh, they're
most
shorter
of you
ones
have
over
probably
here.
never heard of me or seen me or known me at all, and so I'm going to start off by telling you my story. And I need you to know that it starts off a little rough, but it ends well. So I was adopted as a baby, and in an era where you are to be seen and not heard. And when I was probably about 8 years old, my mom called me blue. And so dutifully, I figured I was in trouble for something, or I had a chore to do, and I get down to the end of the hallway. She's standing in the doorway of the living room. And beyond her, I can see my dad sitting on the couch behind a newspaper. And she turns and she looks down at me and she says, your brother tells me that your dad's been doing stuff to you, is that true? And I clearly remember standing there thinking, I'm not supposed to lie to my parents. I don't know what to do, and I just said, yes. And she turned and she looked at my dad and she said, is that true? And he said, I don't know what she's talking about. And he never looked up from the newspaper. Never. And nothing ever changed. And so when we're
lied to or lied about.
let me eat the microphone. Is that okay? Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. So if we're lied about, lied to, it can mess us up. I mean, it can really jack us up. And it did, it jacked me up. I was hospitalized 5 times for depression in 1 year by the time I was 30. And so I jokingly say that I do what any good jacked up person would do. I became a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so I became a professional codependent. And I figured after, 13 years of my own therapy and 11 years of college, and then I did in-office therapy with people for 17 years, that I could help anybody. I mean, I genuinely thought I could help anybody with all of that. But I noticed that my clients were still getting stuck, and this frustrated me because they were paying good money, they were coming, they were working hard, but they would only go so far. So one day I was sitting on my couch thinking, why would anybody over-identify with the worst thing about them? And I heard 2 words. If there's nothing that you remember about everything that I say, I want you to remember these 2 words. Identity abuse. Identity abuse. I believe 100% those are God's words. because I would have never put those two words together. They're too ethereal. It's like, what does that mean? And I spent 3 days with God saying, if the identity that you gave me had been abused, what would that do to me? And it explained nearly the vast majority of emotional health disorders, because people are believing lies because they feel true. And taking that information, and I said, all right, God, how do I, with all of my clinical history and all of my experience, take somebody whose identity has been abused and walk them out of that into health and wholeness from a biblical perspective? So I came up with a 12, it just happened to be 12 steps. And so I turned into a program. I did it at the church that I was on staff at for a while. And I was just watching these people change. I was watching my therapy clients change. And eventually, I was out in this tiny little church out in the middle of no man's land, and I thought, there's got to be a better way to get this information out to people. And so 5 years ago, I went fully online. I resigned from my church. I hung up my shingle as a therapist. I became a coach, and now I help predominantly Christian women in leadership overcome their self-doubt and then speak professionally. So that's the history of what I do. Now, in the program that I teach, and this will be on your little card. Oh, and I was telling others, this is your handout because I was told I had to have one for you. And I want you to keep this someplace. If you're going to speak, wherever you're going to go to write your stuff, make sure that this is there to remind you of the things that you need to be an effective speaker. So in the program, the 5 things that I cover is mindset, heart posture, skill set, mentorship, and strategy. So those are the 5 things that are on the front of the card. Okay. And so we're not going to go really deep into much because skill set is why you came here, I'm assuming. Okay. All right. So I asked this question, and I want you to think about it for a second before you answer. What did God call you to do? Now, this should be an action word or a verb. What did he call you to do? Most people will answer that with a position. They won't answer it with an actual verb. So, what did God call you to do? Does anybody have an answer to that?
Encourage.
Follow him.
Okay, and what does that mean in action? If you got out of bed tomorrow and you said, okay, God called me to follow him, what would you be doing?
Loving.
Okay, so God called me to love.
Ministering.
Okay, and who said that? Okay, and what does ministering, Michelle, mean to you?
Meeting people where they're at, whatever they need.
Okay, and what would be the last time that you ministered to somebody? What were you doing?
Talking, connecting,
Listening?
yes.
Okay, so does everybody see how hard this question is? It's a hard question. And if we don't really have clarity on what God called us to do, we're going to get stuck in other people's call. Okay, because they're going to say, oh, I have a position available over here, and I have a position available over here, and oh, and you can do that, so go ahead and fill this role. And then sometimes we feel dissatisfied and we're not sure why. And to be able to say, am I fulfilling the call that God gave me? Am I doing that thing? I have a friend, we used to have lunch once a month, and I said, and she was frustrated, and I said, well, what are you called to do? She was hired, she used to be a bookkeeper, she was hired as the bookkeeper for his large church, and they never let her preach or teach, and she says, oh, I was called to preach. I said, why aren't you preaching? She goes, well, I have to take this class, I still have to take this class, and I said, no. Why aren't you preaching? Well, so-and-so said thus and so, and I said, Gil, there's a homeless shelter down the street. They have to have a preacher every single night of the week, and they always have openings. And when she changed her mindset, she was able to actually go, and within 6 months, she became a senior pastor of a church up in Northern California. So again, if you have clarity on what God has called you to do, specifically called you to do, you can do that outside the parameters of any other system. You could go, so Michelle, who wants to work with seniors, right? She could do that out of her home, right? You don't have to, and I'm not saying I want you to hear me, I'm not saying don't follow the rules, right? I mean, if somebody said, here's the thing for this structure and you want that position, you should probably follow those rules. But you need to have clarity on that, okay? What would your ministry be like? Okay, so let me ask this question again. Does anybody have an action verb answer to what did God call me to do?
Encourage.
Oh, mine is detangle.
Okay.
I work with helping people figure themselves out and get past obstacles, and that could be counseling or teaching or whatever.
Okay,
like
good.
untangling things. Yeah.
Right, so the practice of helping people get unstuck.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
And interaction that is. So you would know if you were doing that. So you know when you're eating lunch and you know when you're detangling people. There's clarity, okay? And so God, when I asked God, I said, fine, what do you want me to do? He said, feed my sheep. Now, how many of you are his sheep? And I'm hoping by the time this hour is over, you've been fed, right? And I've done my job. Identity abuse. Remember those two words, okay? That's my heart's desire, is to make identity abuse a household phrase, so that everybody understands that their identity can be abused. And your identity is your self-perception, basically. What I believe about myself can be abused. I will believe lies about myself because they feel more true than the truth does. And that's what I really, really help people overcome. What would your ministry be like if you were freed from all self-doubt? So I want you to imagine, you have no self-doubt, and you got your ministry. What would that look like? I see people smiling at the thought of that. Yeah, imagine that. What would that be like? What would be different about your ministry if you were freed from all self-doubt? I'm supposed to make this interactive, so you guys gotta participate. Yes.
Efficient.
Pardon me? Efficient. Okay, and why would that be different if you were freed from self-doubt?
I have an amazing team of women that I work with, but I am constantly self-doubting myself and turning around asking, what do you guys think about this? Or anything like that. And it's amazing having input, but there's stuff I already know the answer to that I just self-doubt myself on, and if I didn't, we'd probably get from point A to point B a bit faster.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. Anybody else? What would be different about your ministry if you were freed from all self-doubt? The most common thing I hear people say is, I would stand up for myself and I would speak up more. And that's why I added speaker skills to my program. Because I was always just working on the mental health issue, and then they all said, well, I'd speak better, I'd speak more. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make sure you do that well. So, Tessa, may God bless you. Oh, you should get a t-shirt for that. Yeah. I only have medium and large.
I'll take a medium.
Okay, come on down. You're the next contestant. Everybody give Tessa a hand. Okay. What is the most negative self-thought that most frequently rolls around in your head? I'm not educated enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable enough. Yes.
You're always the one raising your hand.
Erica raised her hand to say she's always the one raising her hand. And do you mean that from a voluntary standpoint? Like you're over volunteering?
No, like sharing different ideas.
Oh, okay, I get you. So I used to think the same thing, and because I have like all these thoughts in my head and I want to share. And I actually had somebody within the last year say, she has a lot to say, but she doesn't listen very well. I'm like, oh, okay. In that setting, I need to take more notes. But again, when you have wisdom to share, it's hard not to share it when people are asking, right? So again, for her, it's a negative thing to share wisdom. I mean, you probably don't think that, but it's the thing, right? So what if anybody else? What is something that consistently rolls around in your head? I'm too old.
What if they don't like what I have to say?
What if they don't like what I have to say?
Why you?
Why you? Why you? Because God said so. Yes. Bring on Liz. I can't. And I want everybody to know that God will not call you to something to fail. He will never call you to something to fail. Okay? So everybody here, yes, you.
I'm not educated enough.
I'm not educated enough. Thank you.
I don't have letters behind my name.
And it's funny because there's a thing called, I learned this, and this is not a Christian lady, but it's called educrastination. Isn't that a great word? I'm just going to learn and learn and learn and learn, and I won't ever have to employ it because I'm just going to keep learning. So it's educrastination. All right. Yes. So on your thing, it says, so I'm going to do a little thing on mindset. So hopefully you understand there's some stuff going on in your head that might inhibit your ability to just stand up and say the thing, right? And I'm going to show you this. I did not create it. It comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, and This is how you feel. I'm too old. Carolyn, right? I'm not educated enough. Is it Darcy? Darling? Emily? Sorry. I'm like the lights shining. Yeah, I couldn't see that. Right? So, I'm not good enough. I can't. So it feels like that is who you are. This is what the enemy wants you to believe. But this is what is true. God designed me. He created me. I am me. And I am having a feeling of inadequacy, a feeling of being too old, a feeling of I can't, a feeling I'm undereducated. It's just a feeling. And the bonus is this little segment right here. Recognizing when that feeling shows up. Every time that feeling shows up, you need to stop and go, oh, there's that feeling again. And this is what I tell myself. The enemy's trying to stop me. And then I just lean in, okay? So the enemy's only going to taunt you in the places where you're going to be most effective or where he knows he can trip you up. So whatever that phrase is for you, you need to recognize when that's rolling around in your head and stop and say, what is the enemy trying to keep me from doing right now? Because then you can say, what are you going to do with that feeling? You can own it and have it become part of who you are and your perception, or you can say, no, not today, Satan, or I'll deal with it later, which is okay, right? Sometimes we have emotions in the real time we can't deal with right now. But just understanding that there's a feeling, and when you get this, and it'll dynamically change the way you respond to stuff, okay? All right, that's your mindset. Heart posture. So your heart posture is simply your relationship with God. So on a scale of 0 to 10, don't answer, I want you all to answer at the same time. On a scale of 0 to 10, where is your relationship with God? Okay, when you just think about your relationship with God, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0, I don't have one, 10, it's exactly where I want it to be. Where are you? Everybody sit on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, did everybody say 10? No, okay? So just recognize, where is your relationship with God? Often we attach this to behaviors, to service, like I did the thing, and so God's happier with me, and if I, and to understand, I spend time alone with God, and that my relationship with Him is on a this number. And then what would be the next thing I would have to do to make that number go up? That's it. If you can keep it that simple, then you can take that off the table of things that you're worrying about. He knows if you're growing with Him, right? Okay, that's your heart posture. All right, skill set, or I'm going to do last. Mentorship. Do you have someone who champions your call? Not necessarily what you're doing right now, but your call. There's somebody who knows what you're called to and encourages you and comes alongside you and tells you what the next steps are. You need to really have that dial down and go find it if you don't have it, okay? And there's lots of verses, and I probably could have looked up the Bible. And I thought, I'm such a bad pastor. I didn't even read my Bible. But I have it on my phone. Isn't that everybody's scapegoat right now? Yeah, but I have it on my phone. All right. And then strategy. All right, strategy is, oh wait, I forgot. I gotta do something else. All right. So everybody's got a Post-it note. Does everybody have Post-it? Everybody should have a Post-it note. Does anybody not have a Post-it note? Okay. Everybody got one? Everybody got one? Okay. So, yes, ma'am. Oh, you have it.
No, I don't. She needs one.
Oh, okay.
I got one.
We need a Post-it note back here.
I got one.
Oh, she's done.
Anybody else? Oh, wait. Maybe you want one?
So, here's the question. This is a combination of your heart posture, so your relationship with God, and your mindset. Okay? The question is, and don't write the question down, just the answer. What do I need to be done with in order to believe about myself what God believes about me?
Wow.
What do I need to be done with to believe about myself what God believes about me? And these are some, I do this everywhere I speak, and I have hundreds of these. So I'm going to read some just to give you some ideas. Not doing it right. I feel done with feeling not enough, fighting those who make me feel like this. I'm done with feeling self-doubt. I'm done with feeling I'm not smart enough. I'm done with worrying about not getting enough done. I'm done with trusting my own or others' reason over the word of the truth of God. I'm done with believing that I can't when God says you can. In me, you can. I'm done with choosing comfort over obedience. I'm done choosing fear over trust in His word. I'm done feeling alone. I'm done believing I'm a nobody. I'm done at feeling like I don't matter to anyone. I'm done believing that I am difficult to love. I am done feeling lazy and inadequate. I am done second guessing that God can use me in a mighty way for His glory. I'm done feeling not good enough. I'm done thinking I'm not smart. I'm done allowing the enemy to get in my head. I'm done letting anxiety dictate how I live. I'm done with being dictated by time. I'm done with speaking poorly to myself. I'm done with trying to make everything perfect for everyone. I'm done being afraid and confused. I'm done feeling guilty about my past even when others bring it back up. So when you're done, there's the little places where you can go stick it up there. And then at the end, what I do is I take a little video of all of those, and you can take pictures just to remind yourself you are not alone in your self-thought statements that are negative. But as you declare, I'm done, so those are the two most powerful words that are going to help you continue moving forward in whatever God has called you to do. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with this. So I had a one-on-one coaching client who's a guy at a church, and he said, I'm done with self-sabotage. And so we're going through coaching, and like months have gone by, and then he stops and he goes, oh, nope, I already said I'm done with self-sabotage. He brought it up to himself. He memorized it enough to recognize when it was happening to himself to be able to say, I'm done with that. And it gives you the courage to move forward in that. So if you want to get up and go and do that, it'll give us a moment to break.
I know, it's like you have to be like 6 foot tall, though, but you're not gonna.
Did anybody find that helpful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a reel. I did a workshop that had like 250 women in it, and so there was like this long window, and I just kind of went like that over it and put the song, look at me, look what you've done. Look at me now over it. You can see I'm done. Just remind ourselves. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to talk into the microphone. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so on to skill set. Again, I'm going to ask the question, and I did poke the thing, and the air should come on, but I don't know if it is. Is there any question that you have about actual speaking that you want to have answered before we move forward? Okay. Yes.
How to get in a mindset where you're terrified and know you're no good at it, but you still have to get up and talk to people?
Okay, perfect. How many of you, okay, perfect. That's perfect.
Yes.
Yes, okay. How many of you know the next time you're gonna talk? Okay, do we have any pastors in here? Okay. So I'm actually the senior pastor of my church, so I get to do it this week. Yes. So the easy answer is to focus on the end result of what people are going to receive, they're going to experience when you're done talking. So if I'm giving
Can you repeat that?
yes, I will.
Thank you.
So if I'm speaking on exercise, right? And all these people come to the room and they all want to learn how to exercise. I come up on stage and I have all these really great tips on exercise, and I think in my head what you're gonna be like when you've employed these things. I won't think about myself. I'll be thinking about, you know, if did you understand what I said, and are you gonna go and do the thing, and what can I help you with, right? And you won't think about yourself. And it sounds simplistic, but it actually will do away with, you know, what about me and the thing, and I'm saying the thing, and I'm stupid, and right? It gets you can't do both at the same time. You can't be focused on your audience and be in your head at the same time. So that was a great question. It's a very common question. Allegra, did you understand enough to? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So we had this conversation in the workshop that I was in. You have to remember that your message is the most important thing. People are coming to you because they want to learn something from you. So this is a really bad analogy, but it's the only one I ever use. But if your great grandfather was dying and had really bad breath, and he's like, you know, just really absolutely like all shriveled up, and he's about to go, but he has $1 million hidden someplace in the yard, and he will only tell you, you're not gonna go, sorry, can't do that. Because the message is what matters. So people will come and they want to hear your message. So that's the most important thing for you to remember, is that they want to know your message. It's the message that matters. The second most important thing is, what are they taking away from that? Are they taking away what you want them to take away? This is probably the one thing that most pastors, I won't use the word fail, but miss the most, is the action step. Now, you go into the business world and you have, you know, people that are saying, come by my thing, or go to my table, or, you know, they have something they want you to do. And most pastors don't say, okay, now that I've spoken about all of this, here's how I want you to put that into play in your life, and be super specific about it. So I'm going to teach you this. You have to have that in mind. The next time you speak, what is it that you're hoping they're going to do? So I'm preaching on fasting on Sunday. That lunch was not participatory, right? Yeah. And so I know that I want my people to practice fasting this coming week. I know that in my head. So somewhere in my message, I need to say, go home and fast, and make it super clear, right? You need to know that end result. So the framework that's on the back of your thing, I want you to memorize the framework, because you can use this anywhere. And I use this in my story when I talk to you about it. Okay. So I used to be codependent. I used to be jacked up. I used to be, you know, an abused person. I used to be an addict. I used to a whole bunch, right? But now, due to therapy, relationship with God, mentorship, right? I want you to have a relationship with God, get some therapy, get some mentorship, so that you can experience the freedom of being able to live in the call that God has called you to. So that's the framework. You can use this for any speaking engagement. So the one I use the most is, I used to be fat, but now I'm skinny due to Weight Watchers. I want you to join Weight Watchers so you can be skinny too. Okay? All you're doing is you're telling your story, and you're inviting people in. So I can also say, I used to hate reading the Old Testament, but now I find it enjoyable, due to understanding that Jesus spoke all the time about the Old Testament. I want you to read the Old Testament so you can understand Jesus better. I can imagine. I have a 10-year-old son who has pizza under his bed or whatever, right? And just won't clean his room. I used to never clean my room, but now I keep my whole house tidy, due to the fact that I had friends come over and they saw how gross it was and they never wanted to come back. I want you to clean your room so your friends never reject you. So the end result is always something that they desire. So that's kind of what we were talking about in the workshop, was how do you do this in a way that they want what you're giving? And people say, oh, well, that's manipulation. We have the most important message on the planet. And all I'm trying to do is help people be able to get to the place where they're receiving that message. And the training that I took, the guy who, one of the guys that leads it, did his study on how adults learn. And so a lot of these things are just really helping, you want your people to learn. Otherwise, we're kind of just wasting our time, right? So, does anybody want to practice this? Raise your hand. Come on. Okay. Come on down.
Sarah.
Okay. All right. So, tell me about yourself.
My name's Sarah. I work here at Crosswinds. I have the cutest pets on the planet, and my husband was back there. But now
Okay.
he's
And
not.
do you speak ever?
Occasionally. I do a lot of teaching and counseling.
Okay. Perfect. And what are you hoping? So pick one of those: teaching or counseling.
Counseling.
Okay. So what are you hoping people will get when they're done counseling with you?
I hope they feel more regulated and more attentive to themselves.
Okay. So they can experience being attentive to themselves and
Yes.
regulated. So that's where you're
Yes.
going. So did you ever have a time in your life when you did not feel regulated and attentive to yourself? Okay. Can you think of a very short story so that would exemplify the fact that you were not self-regulated?
Yes. Okay.
One that you'd be willing to share.
Sure. Okay, this is kind of along your questions too. I always get nervous before I speak. Someone explained to me that your body can't tell the difference between nervous energy and excited energy. And so when I learned that, I started to use the nervous energy to help me get my point across rather than keep me from it. And so then I felt more regulated.
So I want you to think of a specific story when you weren't regulated.
Well, anytime I speak, and I also have coffee before. It's every
I don't know
time.
if that helps. Yeah. So this is important. If you're going to tell your story, you have to have a specific story that we talked about story, right? That you're inviting people into your story. All you're doing is telling your story. So if you have a specific time that you can say, yeah, I was totally dysregulated. So you think about your person's coming and they're totally dysregulated. You go, I remember a time I was like that. It was X.
Okay. I'm making it into a specific story. Okay, I felt one time I was gonna speak and I felt really nervous and I felt like I had to rush because I was worried about the time, and I realized I didn't have to rush. What I needed to.
Nope. You stop.
And I just felt really nervous. That's it. Okay.
Yeah. So there was a time when I used to get up on stage and feel really nervous, but now and you said I self-regulate by thinking about the thing, right? So you can say now I self-regulate. So I used to be a wreck getting on stage, but now I self-regulate due to hearing the instructions about self-regulation. I want to teach you self-regulation so you can be self-regulated. Okay?
Amen. I'm gonna put that on my
Do you
website.
So I want you to try to say that.
Okay. I used to be a wreck before I would speak or teach or anything. But because of what I learned.
No, not
Oh.
yet.
But now I self-regulate due to knowledge I learned about it. And I want you to do that too, so that you can also experience being regulated.
Give her a hand.
I got a t-shirt. I work at a church.
All right, so again, I was instructed to make this interactive, so I need another volunteer. Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah, so this can be for anything. It can be for communication with your family, it can be being on stage, it can be teaching small groups. Okay, come on down. Everybody give Elizabeth a hand. Okay. Yeah, do you have it all down already?
Sure.
Make sure you eat the mice together.
Okay, so I used to really give tough love to my daughter, but now I've learned to speak with her with kindness and love. And due to that, her and I have been able to have a more open communication. And I want you to learn how to be able to communicate with those that you love more freely and openly and without fear, so you can experience Jesus' love.
So she did a really great job, right? She did a really great job. The only issue is you said this here, you didn't tell us how you learned to speak. Okay.
Due to therapy.
Okay, so I want you to try it again.
Okay. I used to be really tough love with my daughter, but now I am able to speak with her with more kindness and love due to therapy that we both went to as a family. And I want you to learn that you're able to change and learn new ways to communicate with those that you love so you can experience Jesus' love.
All right. Who's next? Come on down. You're the next contestant. Somebody. Come on, Wanda. Help me out here.
I'm reading a message next Saturday, and it's on God's timing, but I want to speak to those women that have felt unseen and invisible for a long time. So I was just trying to put it together.
Got you.
I used to feel unseen or invisible, but now
You still feel unseen and
not as much anymore.
And what do you feel?
I feel more confident now due to education and counseling and the Word of God. And I want you to experience the same.
Well, because we have the experience of the last one.
Oh,
So
I want you
what
to-
is the remember action verb. This is why I asked you guys this. The action verb.
Unseen and invisible, but now
What do you want them to do that's going to change that in them?
to do the same thing that I did.
Which was?
Get an education and go to counseling and seek the Word of God.
Yes. Right. So that, and then you go into
So that you can experience the freedom in Christ and you can freedom that Christ gives you and be able to accomplish your dreams
and
your
knowing
goals.
that I serve a God that sees me.
Amen. Yes, God sees us. Yes, that's important.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So give it a shot all the way.
God, that's okay. I used to feel unseen and invisible, but now but now I feel confident due to education and the Word of God and counseling. And I want you to do the same, Lord.
Right, but tell them you want.
I want you to
go to counseling.
get the education and go to counseling and seek the Word of God, so that you can experience the freedom and confidence and be seen by the Lord, because He is the God that sees us, just like He told Hagar. I am the God that sees you, right?
Yes, so good. How does that feel?
That feels wonderful.
Okay.
Now I have a message for next Saturday.
So do you understand where the action verb, you have to really know what is it that you want them to do. So between now and Sunday, it was funny, somebody invited me over for dinner tonight, and I said, I have 4 books to read before then. But I've read them all, and that's what I said. I said, I've read them all before, so I'm just gonna jam through them. But I have to know exactly what I'm gonna ask my people to do. And because this is what I do every week, and I've done this. I was the interim pastor for like 8 months before I became senior pastor. Every Sunday, I'm like, how many of you did the thing? No matter what it was. And people will or won't raise their hands. And last week, I actually mocked these cards off of the one that I gave my people, which was saying the Lord's Prayer every day for 7 days. And so where it says mindset, whatever, it had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I was thrilled to death. I had a very small congregation. I went in and I'd say 75% of the people raised their hand. And I was like giddy. I'm like, wow, I actually did it, because they know. Like one time I said, hey, go watch this movie. And I had 2 people that did it, right? And then I said, on a scale of 0 to 10, where's your relationship with God? I told them, this is the only question I'm going to ask you repeatedly for the duration of my pastorate, because that's my biggest mission, is to shepherd your soul. So every Sunday, on a scale of 0 to 10, where's your relationship with God? That when somebody asked me that question, that's the day I got saved, because I did not know how to answer the question, and I was raised in church. Yeah. And so being able to go to them and say, I want you to pray this prayer. I have one guy, he's got all my things I've handed out taped on the inside of his Bible. So I told him, I said, I probably should buy binders, so that you can actually keep the stuff. But people will come up to me and they said, hey, I didn't get the thing from last week. Do you have any extras? If you expect your people to put into play what you're asking them to do, it becomes this pattern of activity. And they expect it. And then they see other people raising their hand and it becomes kind of a group thing. So, yeah. All right. Somebody else. All right, Liz, give Liz a hand.
So I used to be a bully and disliked people very much, but now I have a deep love for people due to God changing my heart as I built a relationship with Him and gained an understanding of God's love. I want you to know God the way I do by exploring a relationship with Him so you can experience His grace, love, forgiveness, peace in your life.
Thank you. Did she get all the parts in there? Yes, yes. You raised your hand, so you get to come on down. Did everybody get a piece of swag? Okay, we need to have the bag, keep the bag passed around. All right, Miss Michelle. Remember, you're just telling a story, Janet. You're just telling your story. I used to be like this, and now I'm like this, and this is a change agent, and I want you to do the same thing I did so that you can experience what I'm experiencing. Okay.
I used to think that my strengths were, when it came to work, focused on the English language. So everything that I did was always writing. But now, I was always writing, and I thought I was never good at math. That's what I always told myself. But now, I just completed a course, a 10-week course, where half of it was statistics. And I became certified in that due to basically not listening to that voice. Doing what God told me to do. That opportunity came, I asked God for an opportunity, it came, and I just took it, didn't even think about it. And then as I went through, right? So due to listening to God's calling and not listening to that voice, so I want you to be open to what God's telling you and not let the other things that get in the way of that. Just follow God so you can experience the wonderfulness and joy of the accomplishments and the things that He can bless you with.
Thank you. I just want to drill this into you, right? Because if you learn the basic framework, you can walk anybody through anything. And again, the end result needs to be something that they go, yes, I need that, right? So so the mentorship program that I do the mental health stuff, and then we actually go into the speaker skills stuff. And I had a friend, we were in a marketing program together, and he and I spent a day together. He's like, I'm having a problem. He does digital stuff for churches, like helping their digital appearance. And I said, you need to work on your verbiage, you need to da-da-da-da. We spent an hour together, and he's like, that was just so wonderful. And he said, I got off the phone, and I had a connection, and within an hour, I sold my coaching to the next church that I had. And I'm like going, oh, yes. And so then I said, you can Zoom with me for 2 hours every week, and we can talk about this every week, and it's really, really cheap. And he's like, you know what, I probably need to do that. So I have a group for guys and a group for gals, and so he joined. And I'm like, because that was something that he wanted, right? He wanted to have that access to the knowledge and the shared information. So when it comes to volunteerism, how do you make it something that they want to do? You have to get them to that place where they're seeing the benefit to themselves. And I know that sounds really horrible in the church world, but that's the reality of the situation. They won't raise their hand and go, yeah, that's me, unless it's guilt and shame, and that won't last. Right? Your turnover is going to be really high. But if it's something that they want, and like, what's your name again? Casey, that's right. Casey said, and see now it just went,
So the train left this
Yeah, it did. It just went.
The guilt and shame or the inspiration and wanting to motivate people for the volunteers.
Yeah, there was something that she said in the workshop about the right people. The right people. You have to speak to the right people. So if I came in here and I talked to all of you about going to a men's breakfast, right? I mean, what would be the point in that? I mean, unless you're gonna cook. Right? I hate to say that. I know it's very genderish, but anyway. But you understand the point is that, like, for me, I had a really hard time because I wanted my friends and family to go, oh, look at that, so cool. Look at what you do. I don't even think my kids know what I do. I mean, they know I'm a pastor now, but I mean, as far as my whole business and stuff, I don't think they have a clue what I do. But they'll say, Mom, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, you don't even know what I do. I don't say that to them, but I know that's true. And I was hurt because, like, my friends, my closest friends were like, oh, go do that. That sounds really cool. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, you should come and check out this. And it's all done online, so I'm like, there's no reason, right? It's like, you can do this. And none of them did. And I was just getting really wounded and hurt. But I realized they aren't the people that I'm trying to serve. So there was no point in putting that energy into these people that really don't desire what it is I have to offer. So again, picking the right people is super important. So I wanted to let you know that there's a boatload of more information that I could have given you, but I wanted that framework to be the one thing that you took home. And there's a QR code on your little ticket. I reduced the price of my master class by 50% just until Sunday night. You can go online, check it out, see if it's something that's interesting to you or somebody that you know who could use a little, help. And so may God bless all of you in all that you do, whatever God has called you to do. Don't lose sight of that. Don't believe the lies of the enemy. Rebuke him and may we flourish. Thank you.
I have thought of you
Oh, you're very welcome.
many times. I cannot even tell you.